is that whenever a country, if something grows as quickly as Korea has grown and expands, it's never going to happen evenly.
여기는 미국 펜실베니아 주립대 한국을 사랑하는 샘 리처드 교수가 한국의 현재 모습과 함께 한국이 가지고 있는 문제점에 대해서 강의를 하고 있습니다.
Korea is a socioeconomic geopolitical miracle. What Korea has done, in my lifetime, we'll say in the past 55 years or so, has been something that we've really never seen in human history. To reach a level of modernization, growth, and development that we just have never seen. It's really, if you want to be, many of you are probably fascinated by, Korean culture and K-pop and this sort of thing. But it all comes from something. And if you look at those numbers there, South Korea in 1965, the GDP is 3.1 billion, and now it's 1.8 trillion. Korea, in 1965, the economy was, the country of Ghana was wealthier than Korea. The country of Algeria was wealthier than Korea. Dude, Tunisia was wealthier than Korea. And now Korea is the 10th largest economy in the world. What happened? And which is, of course, what it has maintained my interest in Korea. I was first interested or introduced to Korea back in the mid-'80s through some of the early to mid-'80s when I had some graduate student friends from Seoul. And I started to really kind of dig into Korean geopolitics and economics and familiarize myself with the culture and a lot of things. And so, I became just fascinated by Korea. And I have watched it, over the course of the past 40 years, just expand. What happened? And I start asking myself questions. And the questions are the things that guide me and lead me to keep asking more questions. And I just want to know more, and I want to know more. Where if you want to understand this planet, you want to understand human beings, these are the kinds of things that jump out that you say, man, that's really worth exploring. So the other side is that whenever a country, if something grows as quickly as Korea has grown and expands, it's never going to happen evenly. It's going to be very, very difficult for Korea to overcome. And by the way, can I see a raise of hands? Like, how many of you are aware of Korea's cultural positioning in the world? Like the Korean wave, like food and music and K-dramas and K-film and so on and so forth. K-fashion and K-beauty and everything K-gaming and K-animation. Like, how many of you are really aware of Korea's position in the world? Raise your hands high. I just want to really see you. And out of curiosity, how many of you have heard of BTS? And how many of you have heard of Blackpink? I want to talk about a couple of things that are going to frame the conversation we have today. A couple of the struggles that Korea is undergoing right now is trying to figure out how to continue to grow at the pace at which that makes sense, that allows them to sort of sustain, to continue to grow. It's very difficult to do. So I wanted to point this out just because this is something that we're going to talk about a little bit with our volunteers today. Just imagine, this is another thing that you can imagine, right? So here's housing price. This is the average apartment price in Seoul. And almost everyone has an apartment. In 2017, it was $500,000. This is US dollars. And then look, just 3 years later, it's almost $800,000. So imagine in 3 years, the average price of an apartment appreciates by that much, right? Like, and whereas these are the other kind of larger cities in Seoul. So you can imagine it's a country that's also very much in turmoil. And as a result of that, young people, and we're going to talk about people in their 20s a lot today, that are having to work multiple jobs, man, are just like, because when apartments go up when the price of apartments is that steep, you can assume salaries and wages are not increasing at the same level. Just like, look what's going on. Like, people are just taking on any other job. People are just trying to get going and survive and make a way for themselves, right? And live a life that their parents were able to live. Korea is one of the most educated countries in the world. And we often talk about populations of people who are 25 to 34. And that's because, you've had enough time to get through college, and we're not including older generations who are much less likely to go to college. This is like a really pivotal years when we talk about wanting to understand how educated a country is. About 70% of Koreans aged 25 to 34 have 4-year college degrees. And the U.S. is 40%. And there's another certain percentage of people in the U.S. that have 2-year degrees, but 40% versus 70%. And then look at Germany, I put Saudi Arabia because there's so many Saudis in here, and China, Nigeria. What do you do? How do you get there? Like, what's going on in Korea with education? And what's it mean? And so this is what I want to talk about this today. I'm just giving you some data here because this is data that I'm going to draw on in our conversation. So fertility rate is that every childbearing woman has to have 2.1 children in order for a population to reproduce itself. Without 2.1 children, the population can't continue at its current rate. It's going to decline. And Korea is 0.9. Meaning the Korean population is actually decreasing. And so this is the standard sort of population pyramid. You've got to have a lot of people at the bottom to take care of the people at the top, because people at the top require a lot of work. And then this is 1960, here's 1990. Look at how the bottom is really starting to grow up, but the very bottom gets smaller, 2010, and this is 2030. And there's not enough people down there. You got to have workers. No country can grow economically without people at the bottom of its population pyramid filling the jobs that need to be filled. And so every country that runs into ultimately a period of decline, unless you can find some way out of it, like AI or something like that, right? Artificial intelligence, robots, something. But otherwise, you can't continue to grow. And so Korea, highly educated, the more education a population has, the less children people in that population has. So you take Korea as being the really most highly educated country in the world. We can expect that Korea is going to have one of the lowest fertility rates.